Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Insightful Astrology podcast. I'm your host, Astrologer Maria Di Simone, and today's episode is going to be on a fascinating topic. And I have to tell you, today there is no guest, it's just me, and I have prepared a little presentation for you to make this a little extra special. This episode was actually born out of me being a guest on my cousin Joe's podcast about a week ago. So my cousin, psychic medium Joe Peretta, if you haven't subscribed to his podcast already, Ghost Daddy, it's everywhere, Spotify, iTunes, all that jazz. Go and check him out. But I did a guest appearance last week with him, and we talked about relationship astrology. And in a segment of this podcast, for the very first time, I shared my secret sauce for determining whether or not any couple has the potential to be married, to have an enduring, committed bond, an endurability potential, basically. So you can translate that as marriage. And what I have found is that this concept, and I'm going to show you the set of rules in this webinar, this concept, if the rules have not been fulfilled between two birth charts, then even if the two people are very attracted to each other and become lovers or have some kind of connection, they date, they will not get married. They cannot get married because there is not enough endurability potential. And it doesn't mean that if you and somebody that you're interested in has these comparisons that you are definitely going to get married. Okay, so please don't confuse that. However, what it does mean is that in order to determine whether or not any two people have the potential to be married, you want to make sure that at least one of these rules are fulfilled between charts. And invariably, you will notice that when people actually get married, typically more than one of these comparisons are fulfilled. It doesn't have to be the case, but you will notice this. And again, you have to have at least one, otherwise it's just not going to happen. So let me just backtrack and let you all know that, I do appreciate you following this podcast here on YouTube. It is not available yet on iTunes or Spotify. It's not available audio just yet. I'm working on that. I used to have my podcast audio only, and right now it's video only on YouTube. So this particular podcast episode requires the visual. You have to really see the what I'm about to show you in the webinar. And the other thing is, if you are a brand new student of astrology, you're probably not going to understand these concepts. So in order to follow this particular episode, you really do need to be at least at the intermediate level, where you fully understand the basic structure of anyone's horoscope as well as aspect analysis. If you don't understand astrology up to that point, then I'm going to lose you and you're not really going to understand the concepts that I'm teaching you in this podcast episode. All right, so having said all that, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to get into this. I'm going to go through, and listen, guys, I've been using this successfully for about 18 years in my own practice. And I have seen these concepts come to life over and over again. And it is something that I will look at between a couple's charts to determine whether or not there is endurability potential when I am hired as a relationship astrologer to do that type of consultation. So it's something that, to my knowledge, nobody has done an instructional video on this before. There are so many videos about synastry, about compatibility, and about whether or not two people will possibly be together in a romantic relationship. But what I'm talking about very specifically is for you to be able to look at any two people's charts and determine, make a final judgment on whether or not these two people have any potential to get married at all. And it's really exciting to do this, okay? So share my screen, and I'm going to be using my personal life examples to bring this to life. I was thinking about getting some celebrity charts, but to be honest, it was just taking too much time, too much work, and it's always easier for me to bring the astrology to life by sharing my life because I have lived my life and I can validate all of the charts and the situations. So before I do that, though, I'm going to show you my little handy dandy webinar presentation. And this is where we're going to get a little bit technical. Okay. So I do hope that you guys find this to be helpful, valuable. I'm really excited to share this with you now. So, can you marry this person? Astrology technique to predict endurability potential between any couple. This concept is not my own. I did not invent this. Okay, I learned this from one of my favorite astrology books on synastry that I believe has ever been printed. And it is called How to Handle Your Human Relations by Lois Sargent. I have an OG copy, an original copy here, which I'm showing you. And on my screen, I am sharing the current copy. This book was out of print for a long time, and I'm so excited to share with you that it has been back in print. You can get this on Amazon. Just go and Google it, and it is a little tiny pamphlet. It is a little tiny book. It's less than 88 pages. I think, yeah, it's 87 pages, this book. But when I tell you that this little book is the best book you can get on synastry ever written, in my opinion, because she gets down to the point of compartmentalizing relationship astrology. And her book is the only one where I have seen this particular technique illustrated. So what I am doing is taking several pages from her book specifically. So I want to make sure I give her credit. I am taking several pages directly from Lois Sargent's book in order to demonstrate this technique of endurability potential, marriage potential between two birth charts. So astrology allows us a glimpse into the fated potential about any topic. That's just reality. That's just the way it is with astrology. And of course, this includes whether or not two people might enter into a commitment. So I'm going to start by really reading to you a little bit about how Lois brings about this topic. So first, she talks about attraction between two people and indicators of attraction in synastry between two people. So she goes into, for love and marriage, the components of attraction, endurability, balance and temperament and type, mental agreement, and the position of Saturn, as well as how to compare the horoscope. So she starts with attraction. Obviously, a romantic relationship will not occur without indicators of attraction. I'm not covering that in this webinar. I'm covering very specifically endurability, the potential for two people to marry. So under attraction, Lois analyzed the planets of one horoscope as they fit into the ascendant or descendant of another horoscope as one of the primary indicators of attraction between two people. But now what we're talking about is comparing the two horoscopes to figure out if the couple might marry. And even if there are multiple indicators of attraction, Lois says that if this criteria is not met, then there will never be a marriage. And again, it's a secret sauce. It's amazing. It works. So now, one of the techniques that we can look at between two people's charts is connected to the ascendant rulers. So I'm going to read this to you. And in the following, we will consider the ascendant and planetary rulers of the ascendant as they compare in the two horoscopes. And as previously stated, unless there are combinations present of the type, we will now enumerate the couple may not marry at all, despite any attraction between them. Through the ascendant, we read love and affection, The descendant symbolizes marriage, the marriage bond, the responsibility of one partner to the other. And so one potential criteria to look at between two people's charts, and this is one of many, we're going to go through several. If the ruler of the ascendant of one person's chart is in the sign ascending in the other's chart, that is showing endurability potential. So for example, let's say you have one person with Aquarius rising. Well, the modern ruler would be Uranus. Let's say the second person has Uranus in Sagittarius on their ascendant. That would fit one criteria because there is a bond of love and affection here between the ascendants. The ruler of the ascendant in one partner's chart is in the sign ascending in the other. Okay, can you see that? So that's one potential criteria. All right, so I mean, this could be illustrated in so many different ways. Let's say that chart A is Libra rising. Okay, so Libra rising means that that person is ruled by Venus. Well, let's say in chart B, that person has Capricorn rising. Okay, well, Capricorn's not ruled by Venus. However, let's say that person also has Venus in Capricorn on the ascendant. That fulfills this rule. So look to your charts and see if you have that between two people. If you don't, it's okay. There are several others that we're going to go through. So the next one, and I apologize that this is crooked, but I am not the best with PowerPoint. So if the ruler of the descendant of one partner is in the sign ascending in the other. So in this example, Libra is on the descendant of one chart, and the ruler is Venus. Venus is in Capricorn in the other chart, and Capricorn is in the sign ascending on this chart. Okay, so that example is ruler of the descendant is conjunct the ascendant of another in the other chart. Okay, so that's another potential. And again, just think in your mind. I can give you so many examples just off the top of my head that aren't real charts, but that would be imaginary charts like this that could fulfill that. So let's say somebody has Aries on the descendant instead. Well, that person is ruled by Mars. Well, okay, great. In chart B, let's say that person has Gemini rising. All right, Gemini rising, great. But that person also has Mars in Gemini conjunct the ascendant. Well, then this rule is fulfilled, and that symbolizes endurability, marriage potential, according to Lois. Okay, so there's more. Next one. The next possible example of endurability is if the ruler of the ascendant or descendant of horoscope A will be the same or opposite sign in horoscope B. For example, let's go through this. You can see this. Taurus, the sign Taurus, is on the descendant of one chart, chart A. That means Venus is the ruler. Now, in chart B, Venus is in Scorpio. Venus is in Scorpio in chart B, but where does that fall against chart A? Well, it falls conjunct the ascendant of chart A. So the ruler of the descendant of chart A, chart B, has that planet conjunct the ascendant of chart A. And that brings in durability potential. And just think about this, guys. What you're doing is it's like a cohesiveness between two charts that happens when you're fulfilling one or more of these rules. And the cohesiveness is very specific to the ascendant-descendant axis, which is the axis of me and we, relationship and identity. And you have to see this paired up between charts in order for there to be a relationship. Now let's look at another example. Oh, this slide came out very clear. Okay, good. So in this example, Mars is the ruler of the ascendant. So Lois, uses both the modern and traditional rulerships. You can see she's integrating both here. So you can play around with that yourself and make that determination. So Mars, the ruler of the ascendant of chart A, happens to be in Taurus in chart B. And Taurus is the descendant of chart A. So that means Mars in chart B is conjunct the descendant in chart A. The ruler of the ascendant in the person A, person B has the ruler of person A's ascendant of their own chart conjunct their descendant. Okay, that's another example of this, the way this could work. So, and I know that this can get a little bit confusing at first because your mind is probably not used to thinking in this way with these examples. And so you really do have to take out two people's charts and go through this checklist. And again, I encourage you to get Lois Sargent's book. It is back in print. It is available on Amazon. And these slides are literally taken from her book. You can go through it and learn, and you can learn everything else about her technique for relationship astrology. So I really highly, highly recommend this book. So that is another potential. Let's go to another example. So now, if the rulers of the ascendants or descendants of both horoscopes are in the same sign, Lois says that fulfills the potential for endurability. In this example, she has Capricorn rising in horoscope A, and its ruler Saturn is in Gemini in person A's horoscope. So now we have Taurus rising in horoscope B, and that would make Venus person B's chart ruler, and person B has Venus in Gemini. So literally, A and B have the rulers of their respective ascendants in the same sign, Gemini. And so when you do their synastry, the ruler of the ascendants would be conjunct one another. And this can happen in so many ways. And actually, in one of the examples I'm going to give you, I will show you this between me and my ex-husband. This is one, we have actually 3 or 4 of Lois Sargent's rules fulfilled. And so we did in fact marry, we're divorced now, but that is one of my examples. And this is one of the rules that were fulfilled. Or another way of saying this, another potential is if the ruler of the descendant of chart A, in this example, that would be the moon in Pisces because Cancer is on the descendant. So that ruler is the moon in Pisces. And then in person B's chart, the ruler of their descendants is Venus in Pisces. So there's Taurus there on the descendant for person B, making the ruler Venus in Pisces. And when you connect chart A with chart B, you see the ruler of the descendant of chart A is conjunct the ruler of the descendant in chart B. The moon is conjunct Venus. That is another fulfillment of endurability potential between two people. And I have this also in my example files that I'm going to show you later. And it actually is with somebody who we were lovers, but we never went into a committed relationship. So we never got married. However, there is endurability in this relationship because we turned into friends and we stayed friends for many years now. So I'm showing you the gamut here. I'm not saying that if you have these connections with somebody, you are guaranteed to marry them. What I am saying is that unless you have at least one, you cannot get married. It will not happen. And what I'm also saying is that if you have these connections, at least one with somebody, then you know that that relationship will have endurability in some form. In one of the examples, it went from a lover to a friend, but we've been friends for many, 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 many years. Okay, so let's move on. Another example that Lois gives, if the rulers of the rising signs or descendants are in signs opposite in their respective horoscopes. For example, in chart A, Taurus is rising, and Venus, the ruler, is in Virgo in chart A. Now, in the other chart, chart B, Gemini is rising, and the ruler Mercury is in Pisces. Virgo and Pisces are opposite each other. So Lois is also allowing the opposition as one of the potential fulfillments of these rules. So, and it could be the ruler of the descendant or the ascendant, she says. So the same can be true if it was the ruler of the descendant. This example shows the ruler of the ascendant. But again, the same can be true if it's the ruler of the descendant. So let's use this example and pretend. So the descendants, we have Scorpio on one descendant, and let's pretend that Mars is in Aries. Okay, so let's pretend that Mars is in Aries in chart A. Jupiter is the descendant of chart B. So the ruler, Sagittarius is on the cusp of the 7th house in chart B, making Jupiter the ruler of the descendant. So let's pretend that Jupiter is in Libra in chart B. Well, that would make the ruler of the descendant in chart A, Mars in Aries, opposite the ruler of the descendant in chart B, Jupiter in Libra. So that was an imaginary example. But again, I'm just trying to get you guys cooking here to see the possibilities in charts and how this can fulfill itself. Okay, so now let's go to another example. If the ruler of the ascendant of one horoscope and the ruler of the descendant in the other horoscope are in the same sign, that brings endurability potential. And in this example, Cancer is rising in chart A. So the moon, which rules Cancer, is in Gemini in this chart. Aries is on the descendant of chart B. And Mars, its ruler, is in Gemini. So they are conjunct. The ruler of the ascendant in chart A is conjunct the ruler of the descendant in chart B. And this is another common synastry connection that you will find for people who have endurability potential. So let's go to another one. There are a lot. There are quite a few that Lois has here. So don't think that if you don't have one that I already mentioned, that it's not happening. There are others. There are several here. There are several pages in her book that cover this technique. So another potential endurability indicator is if the ruler of one ascendant and the ruler of the other descendant are in opposite signs. Okay, so they don't just have to be conjunct, they could also be opposite. She uses the opposition here as a cohesive factor. And in this example, Taurus is rising with Venus, its ruler in Capricorn, in chart A. And in the second chart, chart B, Sagittarius is on the descendant and the ruler is Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter in Cancer is opposite Venus in Capricorn. Ruler of the ascendant, chart A, opposite the ruler of the descendant in chart B. Fulfilled. There's endurability potential. She also mentioned that if both ascendants or the ascendant of one chart and the descendant of another are ruled by the same planets, that fulfills endurability potential. For example, if Aries is rising in one horoscope, and then you have Scorpio rising, or on the descendant of the other horoscope, then both are ruled by Mars. That brings cohesiveness. If Taurus and Libra are ascending or descending between two charts, both ruled by Venus, that can be a factor. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, so and Capricorn, Aquarius, ascendant or descending, both ruled by Saturn. And in the last two cases, she says the old system of rulership is used in the last two cases, although we also consider Neptune and Uranus as rulers of Pisces and Aquarius respectively, as can be noted by examples given elsewhere. So she does acknowledge that, way back in the first example, we actually used Uranus as an example. Here, she is going back to traditional rulerships for this particular rule of both ascendants or the ascendant of one chart and descendant of the other are ruled by the same planets. So you can look and see if that happens. Another rule is if the same sign or opposite signs are rising in both charts. And this is such a common one to find between people. Example, Aries rising in both charts, or Aries rising in one horoscope and Libra rising in the other horoscope. And so on with Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, Virgo, Pisces. So that is a common link of endurability, potential. And then finally, she says, another excellent sign of understanding and compatibility occurs where rulers of the respective sun signs are in the partner's sun sign. And this is an interesting one. Sun in Gemini and Sun in Cancer with these two charts. So Mercury, which rules Gemini, is in Cancer in the Gemini's chart. And the moon, which rules Cancer, is in Gemini in the Cancer's chart. So by the ruler of the sun sign, we are now finding a way to create endurability potential between two people. And I haven't noticed this one as much as I've noticed the others, but it's there. Okay, so you let me know if you see that. And it does make sense. It certainly makes sense. And it's a way to link endurability. So to conclude, before I show you my examples in charts, in order for any relationship to have enduring potential, including marriage, at least one of these rules must be met. The more that are met, the greater the endurability between two people. So that's a lot to digest. And I know you may want to rewatch this podcast episode if you don't have the book to see it again, to go through these concepts, and that's fine. To my knowledge, again, this has never been taught before instructionally in a video. I have never seen it. And again, all the credit goes to Lois Sargent and her book that was published by the American Federation of Astrologers back in, I think it was 1958. Let me see, I'm curious. 1958, that was the original publication date by the American Federation of Astrologers. This little pamphlet that is the best synastry book, in my opinion. Okay, so now I want to bring this to life for you, some of these rules, by going through some of my love life history with people who I have endurability with. And then there's an example of one person that I don't have endurability with, so that you can make some judgments here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And again, this is to bring the astrology to life. You're going to be doing this yourself for your own charts and for other people. And it's a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that what you see now on your screen, you should be seeing a copy of my birth chart. And so I'm going to start by showing you the comparison between me and my ex-husband. So this is somebody that I married. And again, you're not going to marry someone unless at least one of these rules are fulfilled. I stand by this. I really have tested this, and I want you guys to test this as well. So I will show you in my birth chart, I have Aries rising, Libra on the descendant. Okay, and so remember, this is what we're considering. So Aries rising is ruled by my Mars in Cancer over here. And Libra descendant is ruled by that Venus in Aries over in my 12th house. And I do have Uranus on the descendant. Now, I want you to take a look at my ex-husband's birth chart. His birth chart, he has Libra rising. So right away, one of the rules that Lois mentions is fulfilled. Our ascendant-descendant axis is opposite each other. I have Aries rising, he has Libra rising. I have Libra on my descendant, he has Aries on his descendant. Okay, the degree doesn't matter, it's just the signs. So that's one that was fulfilled. When we go to the ruler of his ascendant, it would be Venus. And Venus is in Cancer. If you remember my birth chart, I have Aries rising by Mars, and Mars is in Cancer. So my Mars is in Cancer, the same sign as his Venus, which means the rulers of our ascendants are conjunct. This is another one of the rules that Lois said as a possible endurability indicator. So now we have two. We also have another one. My ex-husband has Aries on the descendant, and that happens to be conjunct my Venus. So I have the ruler of my descendant is Venus because I have Libra on my descendant, but my Venus placement is in Aries. So the ruler of my descendant is conjunct his descendant. That is another rule that was fulfilled. And there's actually another one. If you remember, I have Uranus on my descendant almost exactly. Well, he has Uranus on his ascendant. So there is that cohesiveness because I have this planet on my descendant and he has the same planet on his ascendant. So even though that's not a direct rule, I actually think that that absolutely fits. So you can see there are multiple indicators here. And what I did do, just don't know if this is easy for you to see or not, but what I did do was try to bring up two wheels, but they're not side by side, unfortunately, with this software. So here we have my birth chart, just to remind you. And then up here is my ex-husband's birth chart. So again, it is that the fulfillment of the rules. You can see our ascendant descendant is opposite. We both have the rulers of our ascendant in Cancer, so they are conjunct. And the ruler of my descendant, which is Venus in Aries, is conjunct his descendants. And last, we both have Uranus on an angle. So Uranus is on the descendant for me, and Uranus is conjunct the ascendant for him. Okay, so that's one, and that was marriage. Now let's go to another one. This was a long-term relationship. So this was a committed relationship with an ex-boyfriend of 9 years. And we are still friends to this day. So you're talking about now it's like 16 years. This wasn't just a lover, though. This was a committed relationship. We were in a relationship. He even lived with me for a short time. So again, look at the ascendant-descendant axis because that is where all the juice is. So in this case, we have the ascendant is in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn. We look at the traditional rulerships. And his ascendant is opposite. The ruler of his ascendant is opposite the ruler of my ascendant. Because if you remember, I have Mars in Cancer. Now, this was one of Lois's rules. Remember, she included the opposition. The ruler of the ascendant of one person's chart can also be opposite the ruler of the ascendant of another person's chart. And so that was fulfilled. That's one. But there was another one. The ruler of his descendant becomes Mercury because he has Virgo on the 7th house cusp. When we look to Mercury in his chart, we see it's at 24 degrees of Aries. The ruler of his descendant is conjunct my ascendant, the degree actually of my Aries rising. So that is another rule that was fulfilled. And so there's two here, right? We didn't get married, but we have endurability potential. We actually lived together. So that was a very significant relationship in my life for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a lover who became a friend. So in this chart, this person has Sagittarius rising and Gemini on the descendant. The ruler of his ascendant is actually Jupiter in Gemini, so it's right there in his 7th house. But the ruler of his descendant becomes Mercury, and Mercury is in Aries. So the ruler of his descendant is conjunct the ruler of my descendant, because I have Libra on the descendant and Venus is in Libra. So I have Venus in Aries conjunct the ruler of his descendant. And we were lovers. We never got married. We never even entered into a stable, committed relationship. However, we became very good friends over the years. He even helped me find my house. He helps me. We go bike riding and hiking, and he lives in my neighborhood. We are just genuine friends right now. And there's this endurability to our relationship, which, you know, some people don't understand, because not everybody can become a friend with an ex-lover or partner. But I have Uranus on my descendant, so I can. All right, so let's see. There's one more example that I wanted to show you. And this example actually is somebody who I never ended up in an enduring relationship with this person, but we were lovers, and then we had no commitment, and then it blew up. Okay, so you can see there isn't any endurability marriage potential here. Why? Well, he's got Sagittarius rising like the other guy, but this one has Jupiter ruling his chart in Scorpio. And then on his descendant, there would be Gemini, and the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, like the other guy. However, this one has Mercury in Virgo. So when you go back to my ascendant-descendant axis, I have Aries rising, ruled by Mars in Cancer, and I have Libra descendant, ruled by Venus in Aries. The rulers of our ascendants and descendants don't see each other in any way. And our ascendant-descendant axis do not mimic each other in any way. And neither one of us has planets connecting our 1st and 7th house. So there was never any endurability potential for this person and I. And yet we were lovers, and he was in my life for a couple of years, but there was never a commitment. And you could see that it is destined that there never would be a commitment, because none of those rules of endurability potential were fulfilled. So this is useful. This is a really useful tool for you guys to learn, because it can help you, if you're dating, judge whether or not there is serious potential of endurability between you and the other person. And if you are looking for a committed relationship, maybe it'll help you realize that that person and you probably won't have that endurability, and maybe you're wasting your time. If you see it and you're looking for it, then great, continue the relationship, because obviously there's something there. If it doesn't matter to you, keep dating the person. I'm just giving you this technique. This is an amazing, valid, valuable technique that anybody who is a student of astrology at the intermediate level or above can put to use in their practice. So I encourage you to play around with this. And so again, this was a bit of an unusual episode of the Insightful Astrology podcast. No guest, but I did give you this little presentation, and it's on a topic that I really love digging into for my clients and for other people. And I love teaching about it in my relationship astrology class when my group of students gets to that. So if you are interested in becoming a student of mine, please know that you can go to my website, InsightfulAstrology.com, and get on my waiting list for any of my classes. My next beginner's class is starting August 12th. So brand new group of beginner students start in August. But after that, I will teach an aspects class. I teach classes up to the level of professional. So there are a variety of classes in the curriculum over at my school at Insightful Astrology that you can find out about if you're interested to get on the waiting list for. And I hope you enjoy this show. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Share this information with others. And until next time, keep using the power of astrology to grow into your soul. Bye for now.